Everyone who goes to sea is aware of its splendor and the harm that pollution can cause. People ashore are also aware of this, and although only a minority of oil pollution comes from shipping, this has received more than its fair share of attention from legislators and the general public. The result is that even small oil spills can result in significant damage and enormous cost. Spills of a few barrels have ended up costing shipowners millions of dollars. Most oil spills happen during routine operations such as bunkering and, on oil tankers, cargo transfers. The majority of these spills are due to human error and could be avoided. This video is going to look at practical measures to reduce the likelihood and impact of spills. Before an oil transfer operation begins, there are many things that should be done. The piping system must be correctly lined up, and all valves and connections not required must be closed. If there are any sea or overboard valves connected to the system, they must be closed and lashed. All scuppers should be plugged, including scuppers in drip trays. The counter-pollution equipment must be checked, then put on deck and made ready. If there is a spill, fast action will be essential, and the gear must be ready. Great care needs to be taken during all connection procedures, with correct use of blanks, thorough bolting up using all the bolts. But it's not just about keeping to the right procedure. You need the right attitude. Everything needs to be done properly and then checked. Use the checklists available to you. Take the time and trouble to do it right. During the transfer, you must continually look for leaks. These often start from small drips, so look carefully at all flanges and hose connections. Make sure you are aware of the chain of command, who to tell if there is a problem. Check that radio communications are fully operational all the time. Always give the ship's name at the start of a conversation, just to make sure there is no confusion.
Started at 10:30.
Even if correct procedures are followed, even if everyone is vigilant, there may still be occasional leaks. A speedy reaction to reduce the pressure will minimize any spillage.
Watch this tank now, 101, that's coming up.
Most of the time, nothing happens.
If you'd like to call them on
Boredom can be a problem if you are on duty at the manifold. You should try to consider different disaster scenarios and what you would do if they occurred. Stay alert. You should participate fully in exercises of the ship's response to a spill. Get to know how to use the pollution response equipment on your ship. The plastic or non-sparking shovels and scoops are easy to use. The use of sorbent materials is not so obvious. They work on two principles. First, absorbents, which soak up oil like a sponge. And secondly, adsorbents, where oil sticks to the outside surface of the product. There are many kinds, both natural and synthetic. The natural products, such as sawdust, are usually cheap, non-toxic and biodegradable, but often soak up water as well as oil. Some are dusty and difficult to control. Synthetic sorbents absorb a lot of oil and don't absorb water. Some types are reusable, but they can be expensive and can result in large quantities of material that need to be stored and disposed of properly. Find out what sorbents are available on your ship. Make sure you know their advantages and disadvantages. Here, in this training exercise, sorbent is being used to form a dam or berm to stop the flow of oil. This strategy is often used to contain or redirect a spill to where it can be dealt with. Precise techniques will depend on the sorbents available on your ship and the oil product spilled. Wind and weather may also be a factor in determining the best way to use sorbents. Whatever sorbent is used, the ship must be able to store the oily debris. This needs to be collected and stored until it can be put ashore. For recovering large quantities of oil and product, many ships carry portable non-sparking pumps. There are several different types. Knowledge of the equipment on board your ship is vital in the prevention of marine oil spills. For instance, these air-driven portable pumps should be set up during drills, as they would be during cargo operations. Turning them on is easy once the connections have been made. Water, or better, fluoroprotein foam, can be used to simulate oil to show everyone how the pumps would work. If the pump is to be used for oil, it will need to be connected to the slop tank. There are several possible arrangements for this. All these pumps will do the job they are designed for. You need to be sure that you know how to work the portable pumps on your own ship. One thing that's always missing from exercises is the physical hazard of contact with oil and oil products. Appropriate use of protective clothing is usually sufficient to avoid most health hazards, but it is essential to know of any specific hazards to health of your cargo. Check the data sheets before any cargo transfer. It's better to ask questions before you start, but it's never too late to be careful. There are 3 ways that you can be affected: inhalation, skin contact, and ingestion by mouth. Cleaning up spills may involve breathing apparatus and chemical suits. The greatest risk is inhalation of airborne contaminants. If the oil or product contains aromatic hydrocarbons, such as benzene, or is a sour crude containing hydrogen sulfide, then great care must be taken. Skin contact with benzene can cause cancer, and inhalation of hydrogen sulfide can be fatal. Never rely on your sense of smell, as it can become rapidly desensitized, particularly to hydrogen sulfide. Always check the atmosphere for any trace of these and any other hazardous compounds using the appropriate equipment. In the cleanup of bunkers and many crude oils, where inhalation does not pose so great a risk, skin contact is the biggest threat. It can be greatly reduced by oil-resistant gloves, and it is advisable to wear them. If there is any contact, immediately wash the oil off. Small amounts of oil on the skin washed off promptly will normally cause no long-term risk to health. Ingestion by mouth can be avoided by taking care during the actual cleanup procedures, and good hand washing and showering afterwards. The most common accidents to personnel during spill cleanups are usually the simple ones: slips, trips, and falls. So make sure that you take sufficient care during any cleanup. Always use appropriate footwear. Take it slowly, do it safely. If there is a spill, then every effort must be made to contain the oil on the ship. If this is impossible, everything must be done to reduce the amount of oil discharged. Once the oil is in the water, then the ship should assess the quantity, track and monitor the spill. Accurate information is of vital importance to the shore-based clean-up organisations. There is a tendency to underestimate the size of the spill. The temptation to do this must be resisted. Underestimation can lead directly to an inappropriate spill response, causing greater environmental impact, more trouble, and increased costs. It is better to overestimate slightly than to underestimate. Honesty is the best policy in reporting the size of a spill. To monitor a spill, it is helpful to know something about weathering, the name for the complex process that occurs when crude oil meets water. Crude oil is a mixture of many different substances, and what happens will depend on the type of crude, the sea state, and the weather and temperature. Some of these effects decrease the spread and subsequent impact of pollution, and some increase it. Any oil on the sea will immediately spread out. In the early stage, the viscosity or flowing rate of the oil is important. The more free-flowing, the faster the spreading. The lighter parts of the oil will evaporate into the air. For some products, the entire volume can evaporate. Even light crudes can lose 40% of their volume by evaporation in the first day. The higher the temperature and the greater the wind speed, the more will evaporate. Low temperatures will make oil more viscous and spread more slowly. Ice restricts oil movement and tends to keep oil concentrated. In temperate conditions, the effect of the wind will be to break up the slick into narrow bands called windrows. This will happen after a few hours, whatever the viscosity. The oil can also be dispersed, especially in very rough sea. Biodegradation by microorganisms living in the sea will occur. This can only take place at the oil-water interface and is a slow process, even in hot conditions. Further changes can also take place. Over 36 to 48 hours, oil can mix with the sea to form an emulsion or mousse, increasing the amount of pollutant by 3 or 4 times. Most crudes will form a stable emulsion in moderate to rough sea states. Some heavy products and weathered crudes may sink. When this happens, it presents a very difficult clean-up problem. Accurate estimation of the size of the spill, good observation of the weather, sea state and how the oil is weathering, along with knowledge of sensitive areas, are all vital pieces of information to the clean-up operation. Tracking the movement of the spill is also important. The spill floats and so will always move with any tide or current. Studies have shown that wind is also a factor. Spill movement can be forecast on the basis of 3% of the wind speed and 100% of the tide or current. Practical measures to assess tidal flow include throwing oranges over the side. The movement of these can be easily monitored by day or by night. Even without a computer, spill movement can be plotted, knowing tidal flow and wind speed using vector analysis. All efforts to track the spill will help provide the clean-up operation with the information needed, and so reduce the impact of the spill. By keeping to correct procedures, good training, and staying vigilant, you will be able to reduce the amount of pollution reaching the oceans and their shores. The seas are an important resource for all of us. We need to take care of them. Attention to detail and effective training in response procedures, as discussed in this video, will go a long way to protecting the marine environment.